Welcome to the Bird's Eye View. I am Randy the War Duck, and today we are going to talk about a football game. But first, I want to go back a little bit and start from the beginning of what kind of struck me and the person that wrote the article about this game. So, all right. So today I want to talk about the bystander effect. And if you don't know what that is, well, we're going to talk about it. And you know what would really help out is if you comment and hit the like button. It doesn't cost you anything, but it helps out the videos and the channel. So here we go. Okay, the bystander effect occurs when in the presence of others discourage an individual from intervening in an emergency situation against a bully or during an assault on other crime. The greater number of bystanders, the less likely it is for anyone of them to provide help to a person in distress. People are more likely to take action in a crisis when there are fewer or no other witnesses present. That's I don't know. That seems strange to me, but okay. Um, Here's the psychological breakdown of it. It says these two people popularized the concept due to a infamous murder of Kenny Genovese in New York City in 1964. The 28-year-old woman was stabbed to death outside her apartment, and at the time, it was reported that dozens of neighbors failed to step in to assist her or call the police. That was later debunked because originally they said it was like 37. That was later debunked. Apparently, somebody yelled out the window, "Leave that girl alone," after he had stabbed her once. He runs off. She crawls into like a corner where nobody can see her. He comes back later and finishes off and then does some other things to her that we just really won't get into. But it says, uh, it's natural for people to freeze or go into shock when seeing someone having an emergency or being attacked. This is usually a response to fear, the fear that you're too weak to help or that you might be misunderstanding the context and seeing a threat where there is none, or even that intervening will put your own life at risk. Um I don't think anymore it's the people freeze or go into shock. Um, I think it's the further context of either their misunderstanding or um, the fact that it's not my problem, right? Because that's a lot of what I think society is kind of doing now. It's just saying, "Oh, it's not my issue. I'll just sit here and record it, and then I'll put it on Instagram, and then that'd be cool or whatever." Instead of stopping the whole thing, right? Says what situations contribute to the bystander effect. It can be hard to tease out many reasons for people to fail to take action, but when it comes to sexual assault, SA, oh man, probably demonetized for that. When it comes to SA against women, research has shown that witnesses who are male hold sexist attitudes or are under the influence of drugs or alcohol are less likely to actively help a woman who seems to be incapacitated to consent to SA. Witnesses who are male hold sexist attitudes or are under the influence of drug or alcohol are less likely to actively help a woman who seems too incapacitated to consent. Okay. Now, I can understand the under the influence. I can understand that one. But witnesses that are male, I don't know about that. Hold sexist attitudes, maybe. I don't know. This is really hard for me to wrap my head around because this is completely opposite to how I was brought up as a kid and what was reinforced, in the military. So this is really hard for me to agree with or to understand because I just don't see. I don't know. I guess you do see a bunch of dudes just standing around not doing anything. Oh man, I don't know. See this is really a difficult thing for me to wrap my head around because it's just not how my brain is wired. All right, we're gonna move on a little bit. All right, social media and the bystander effect. Are we more likely to help a person in need or record the incidents for likes? I think nowadays people are way more likely to record it for likes than to step in. Absolutely, I think that's where we're at now, and that's parents' failure. I think this article was written. This article was written back in September, a couple years ago, but it holds the same true. So I just kind of wanted to follow it. It says earlier this week, a 16-year-old Long Island, New York boy was ambushed by several juveniles on his way home from school. He was brutally beaten and stabbed to death, as many of his peers stood by watching. Worse yet, many recorded the entire incident, including zooming in on him as he lay there bleeding to death in the middle of a strip mall parking lot. Many who work within the criminal justice, I have encountered the worst of mankind, so sadly, I am not surprised by the heinous brutality levied against this person. After all, I and so many others have worked with the most evil and vile human beings with their blatant disregard for human life. They are often they are offenders who lack empathy, exhibit no remorse, and are largely desensitized to violence. The United States has a violent history, and some could say that that culture of violence is met further violence, where crime breeds crime, where violence is a means to an end. What makes this murder somewhat different is the comparison to other murders in past generations that the entire incident was captured on a cell phone video, and as such has become the latest example of a brutal beating slash murder captured on video and turned into entertainment on Snapchat and other social media sites. I'm almost curious about and quite disgusted concerning that nearly 60 onlookers who stood by and did absolutely nothing. No one called the police, no one tried to run for help, and no one attempted to save this young boy. Then it goes on to talk about the Kitty Genovese murder, about how it says the Times reported 38 people had witnessed this, but that's been debunked. Said, and then it goes over what the bystander effect is. Says that down here says these two attributed bystander effect to perceived diffusion of responsibility. Like I said, it's not my fault. It's not. I'm not in it. It's nothing to do with me. Which suggests that onlookers are less likely to intervene if there are other witnesses who seem likely to do so, and social influence in which individuals monitor those around them to determine how to act. Another is the intimidation factor, where people would back down from intervening if they sense an act would put them in the path as the same danger they observe. The bystander effect is, okay. Social media and the bad. Social media has a good side and bad side. The good side of social media is that it helps law enforcement solve crimes by identifying the assailant, which is likely to occur with that person's murder. The bad side is that we are being subject to real life violence, which has been uploaded to Snapchat, Instagram, Twitter, blah, blah, blah. We must bear witness to horrific crimes that are removed from these sites. Unfortunately, by the time the videos are removed, they have already gone viral. Talks here has a powerful influence, even there are no concrete studies. It's been that have proven there have been well-documented cases of crimes or acts violent acts or cruelty occurring while large crowds simply watch and did not even attempt to intervene. In some cases, people can be heard laughing at individuals being brutally attacked or killed. We're becoming less empathetic, have we become less empathetic, or has social media revealed the truth about something that's been going on for decades? Okay, so My grandfather, World War II vet. My dad, although he didn't go to Vietnam, he is a Vietnam era vet. My family has a few generations of military to include myself. I was always brought up to stand up for yourself and stand up for others that need to be stood up for. So this is the foreign concept to me. I just can't even wrap my head around. I am the type to immediately involve myself if I perceive something going wrong, even if it puts myself in a position where uh, puts me at odds of everybody else or in harm's way. I just I don't understand how people can sit back and watch something happen, like that. Like and there's the cutoff, right? Because if it's a one-on-one fight or even a two-on-one fight, largely I'm not going to get involved. But if the fight, as I perceived as it's done and over with, and it continues, that's where I would then get involved, because now whatever the dispute was has crossed that line into a much more serious attack, right? Um, I don't know. I don't, you know, I don't think I could sit back and just watch somebody get killed like that. Um, it's just not how I was brought up and not who I am. It's not what the military instilled in me also. So yeah, very interesting that people can just sit by. Um, and I think it's a generational thing, because I don't see I don't see this happening, back in the baby boomer days, back, in the 30s, 40s and 50s and 60s. I don't see this really happening that much. I don't see people letting stuff like that go. Um so yeah, it's just kind of, I don't know. Like I said, I just can't wrap my mind around this. All right, it says riders held up phones as a woman was AR'd on the SEPTA train in Philadelphia. This is another incident where people just sat and watched as a woman was AR'd on the public transit in Philadelphia. Of course, this is back in 2021. Riders held up their cell phones and pointed them in the direction of the SA instead of calling 911. Officials are investigating whether some bystanders recorded the attack, which happened Wednesday night in the Southeastern Pennsylvania Transportation Authority on the Market Frankford line toward Uptown Darby. I can tell you that people were holding their cell phones up in the direction of this woman being attacked, said the chief Thomas, said the news conference on that Monday. A suspect, this whatever guy, was arrested on R and assault charges. He was listed, address as homeless, remained in custody on a bond. It's not clear whether he had a public defender. Also said that riders were on the train at the time, but that there were very few notifications to the police. No calls were made to 911. Police are still waiting to see whether 911 calls were made in Delaware County, which covers the train's last two stops. The attack wasn't reported until an employee saw what happened. Officials said the news conference that officers responded within 3 minutes of the employee's report. But that means they could have responded within 3 minutes of other people recording it instead of when the employee saw it. What we want is for everybody to be angry, disgusted, and join us in being resolute to continue making the system safe. We need help from the public to notify when they see incidents that are occurring that are unusual. We want people to be our partners and watch out for other riders. See this. Man. All right. So, you know what? I'm not gonna cover the whole thing. What happened? The basic result was that there were people there that could have helped this lady and sat there and did absolutely nothing, which just kind of makes me sick. I don't get it, and I don't understand it. But now we're going to get to the whole point of this story and this background, because there was a high school football game. And the high school football game was canceled in the third quarter because apparently this isn't America anymore. This is from this writer. And I agree with him in this article, which is, it's just kind of very interesting. It says the high school football game in Nevada was called off in the third quarter, Friday night, because apparently we live in a socialist country now. I have no idea what that means or if it applies here, but I'm not sure that I've seen a softer move in my life. For those who weren't locked in the Bishop Gorman versus Lone Peak game last night, a sideline fight broke out in the third quarter of a 35-14 rout. When you see it, you'll most likely assume you missed something because nothing really happened. Frankly, you see way more action around 11 p.m. at your local dive bar. Anyway, according to the Nevada High School football laws, if 3 or more players come off the bench to join a fight, the game is immediately canceled, right there on the spot. Take your ball and go home. That's what we got last night as the Gales beat the piss out of Utah's Lone Peak. All right, so we're going to watch the incident here. On this play. So basically he gets shoved out of bounds right here, right here. Okay. Now watch all these players, right? There's the push there, and now all of a sudden there's this little scuffle. I don't really see any punches thrown or anything, just a bunch of people getting pushed around, a bunch of people pushing around here. And this is the entire incident right here. Okay? But you can see all these people left the sidelines. And all these people walk back. And the other part of this is the team in blue on this side, none of their people left. So now you've seen it, right? So what do you think? The rule is if 3 or more players come off the bench to join the fight on the field, that the game will be called. But Knights were lured off the field, and tell me what you think. Okay, whatever. So then he goes on to say, this isn't high school football I grew up with. You cannot have more than 3 players come off your sideline in the case of a fight. Once you do, you're automatic forfeit to the game. Bishop Gorman coach Brent Brenner said, we technically practiced that. That sounds crazy, but we have practiced that many times. I was kind of proud of the guys that when it was happening, coaches are taught to turn around and make sure kids don't move off the sideline, which they didn't. Okay, now think about that. What are we teaching kids? Right? Like, if your buddy's in trouble, stay there and don't react is basically what you're teaching, right? I mean, what are we doing here? For those wondering, the history books will show how Bishop Gorman won the game 2-0. Objectively, that's hilarious. Stupid, but hilarious. Look, I had no idea these rules even existed in this county. I'm not thrilled about it either. Let the boys play. This is how you mold boys into men. When a fight breaks out, you run toward the action. You're either the hunted or the hunter. You get your feet wet, protecting the fellas, and grow a pair of nuts along the way. I don't want my offensive linemen practicing sitting down during the week. I want them to learn how to lead the way on a sweep to the right and working in as many pancakes as possible. Let's make America great again, first by making high school great again. Okay, so what do you think about what he says here? And when a fight breaks out, you run toward the action. You're either the hunted or the hunter. You get your feet wet protecting the fellas and grow a pair of nuts along the way. So, this is the problem that I have is is I think he's exactly right. If you're teaching men, young men, boys, if you're teaching boys and you're trying to make them men, to make them cower on the sidelines and watch while their fellows are getting into an altercation is disgusting to me. The fact that there's a rule in there that you have to enforce, that you have to teach these kids to be bystanders in an altercation, because that's what you're enforcing. That's what you're teaching them. Their helmets and padded up. Let them run across the field and do some pushing, and then the people that throw punches, you eject them. Can you imagine if that was a rule in a college football or basketball game? The uproar there would be. And the reason there's not that rule is because people bet on those games like big time money, right? But can you imagine in the NFL is, oh, if 3 people leave the sideline, you have to forfeit, and then all those people that bet on the game, right? There would be a huge uproar, and that rule would be changed in a minute. But because this is high school in Nevada, this rule stands. That is insane to me that we're teaching young men to be, I don't know how else to say it, but pussies. I mean, you're literally teaching men to stand by and not react to something that's happening. And then that's disgusting to me. I can't believe that. I'm so glad I don't live in Nevada. And in fact, I have 2 9-year-old twin daughters that right now are in jiu-jitsu, wrestling, and kickboxing. And I swear to God, if I ever find out that they stood by and watched and let somebody, a bully, do something, whatever, there will be hell to pay, because that's not the kind of people that I want to be raising. And they're young women. But yet in Nevada, you're teaching young men to stand by and do nothing in an altercation. That's disgusting to me. I can't believe this is where our society is. And I agree with this guy that we need to make high school sports and high schools great again. And I wish this got more attention. So please comment. Please hit the like button. Subscribe if you feel like subscribing. But what do you think? Am I completely wrong? Or should people intervene? Or should you just record? Or is it okay just to stand by and watch somebody get, seriously hurt? I'm interested to hear. With that, though, we are out of here. Much love all. I will catch you